Good evening. I hope everybody's had a wonderful Thanksgiving break. This week's discussion board, I'm going to focus on the battle for Princeton, part of the fundamentalist and modernist conflict that was occurring in the 1920s. Throughout the 1920s, the Presbyterian Church of the United States of America faced many internal struggles that were a part of the larger fundamentalist modernist controversy that was sweeping through Protestantism. Examples of this early schismatic situation within the Presbyterian Church, there was a couple examples of this in the early 20s. Fosdick, of course, with his sermon questioning the influence of the conservatives, and his sermon was titled, "Shall the Fundamentalists Win?" This, of course, caused a little bit of controversy within the Presbyterian Church. And also, later on, the Auburn Affirmation, which declared that the 5 points of conservative theology, such as like the virgin birth, were really only particular theories that could be adhered to, but some people might view it a little bit differently. So they were starting to open the door for more of the modernist theologians of that time period. These events were just the setting of the stage for the eventual reorganization of Princeton Theological Seminary. There were two main camps that were set up. Dr. J. Gresham Machen was on one side, and Dr. Charles Erdman, also with the president of the seminary, Stevenson, were on the other side. Gresham felt that Princeton Seminary was the only conservative seminary left and that it should be protected and left the way it is. But Dr. Charles Erdman thought that the seminary should actually be more inclusive and allow for more different types of ideology to come in. And this kind of got to where it got a little heated. By 1927, the professional relationship between these two men would actually cause factions within not only the seminary, but also the Presbyterian Church. Dr. Erdman felt that Machen was wrongly classifying him as a liberal, just because he was actually more open to moderate viewpoints, even though himself was very conservative. Eventually, this conflict would boil over in 1927 when the General Assembly delayed the confirmation of Dr. Machen to become the chair of apologetics till the Thompson report, which was part of the Thompson Committee, could actually be presented at the next General Assembly that was to be held in 1928. There was kind of two main issues that were the reason for this Thompson Committee being formed and actually having them do a report. One, they were reviewing the two advisory boards, the trustees and directors, and it seemed to be that these two boards were sometimes problematic in their relationship. And the other was whether Princeton Theological Seminary was actually being inclusive enough for the changing theological environment of that time period. An article from the New Britain Herald on October 20th, 1927 displayed the tension that came from this delayed confirmation of Machen, and it reported of a protest within the Presbyterian denomination over the Thompson Committee report. Eventually, even though heavily opposed by Dr. Machen and other conservatives, the Thompson report was approved, and one board was created to make most of the organizational and doctrinal decisions of the seminary. Machen felt that there was only about 6 of the 33 new members that were actually really conservative being on the board. Dr. Erdman stated that the reorganization wasn't because of doctrine, but Machen disputed that claim in the Evening Star from Washington, D.C. on April 28, 1928. Dr. Machen stated to the newspaper, "To say that no doctrinal issue is involved in the proposed reorganization is to insult the intelligence of the church." So we can see that Dr. Machen was not too thrilled with the reorganization because he felt like this was the end of the conservative movement at Princeton Theological Seminary. After the reorganization of Princeton Theological Seminary in 1929, Dr. Machen, along with other conservative colleagues, decided that they would open up the Westminster Theological Seminary. Machen described this seminary as being pretty much a haven for conservative theological teachings, and he pretty much called the theological teachings the noble tradition of Princeton Seminary. The fight for Princeton was pretty much a Hail Mary for the conservatives in the Presbyterian Church to resist the wave of liberalism that had already infiltrated the denomination earlier in the decade, the 1920s.